Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SIG Node meeting on September 30th, 2025. We have a really packed agenda, so we're going to fly through, starting with the KEP planning. So we've done a little bit of work setting up the board. So now everything that I believe we want to have in is in proposed for consideration. There are some pieces that I was unsure about, and those are still in triage. So if this is an announcement to anyone who has a KEP that's in triage, we are not currently planning on working on those, but we could add those if you reach out. So check the board and make sure that all your KEPs are in the right state. Today, I want to just try to get through these KEPs and set relative priority, and then give people space to volunteer to be an approver if they want to do that. But otherwise, we'll be doing Wrangler assignment offline. We have our team of Wranglers, but we've just recently codified that, so we don't yet have them here. And then, most of the discussion will happen on the KEPs. So yeah, starting at the top, this deprecation, I don't think that this is terribly high priority. Like I don't think that this feature has been widely used, so I was going to propose it be deprecated, but I don't think we need to deprecate it this release if it slips or something. So I think that that's low. Oh, and also just as a note, for the sake of time, because we have a lot of other items, I'm probably going to be flying through this. So just feel free to interrupt me or, raise your hand or something to get my attention if you disagree with anything. So next up, we have, I think, the second stage of structured parameters, but I don't know if any of these pieces are really super high priority because we already got the GA last release. But I do understand that there is some amount of work that's going to be done. Conformance tests. Yeah. So I've set that to a medium priority. I think maybe some of the other DRA work that is going to be more impactful potentially would be a little higher, but I'm open to hearing other positions about that. Okay. Pod generation. Natasha, what do you feel about this in terms of priority? I was thinking medium, but I could be convinced to a high if you find it to be important.
It just went to beta. We typically wait a couple of releases sometimes, but if there are any dependencies, we can do it. I would say medium unless we hear that some other KEP depend on it.
I agree. Yeah, OCI volume source. I don't think that this is, I think it would be good to GA. I think we're ready for it, but I don't think we need to. So I set it to medium. Okay. In place update. I had set it to high, but I think the thing about these stable ones is this one. Oh gosh, where are we at? Are we planning on pushing this to stable in 135?
There is a plan. Yes.
Great. Okay, cool. And we find that, and we have been treating this with a higher priority the last couple of releases. We feel high is good here.
I don't think there is a strong pressure to do that, but we really want to keep velocity high. So I wouldn't say it's like super high. Like if we will see any feedback that it's not working, we can delay it a little bit. But yeah, I don't think we have a pressure.
But I think that doesn't mean that we can't continue with the pressure being high. Okay. So we have the CPU managed one. I think that this one is maybe a low to a medium.
I agree. Medium to low should be very simple. I can help here to approve a review or whatever the SIG wants.
You're in.
Yes, thank you. I expect it to be nice. The following one I can keep talking. Is planned for GA in 36. So we are in this stage in which we gather feedback. So I think we are cool for now.
Are we gonna make any progress this release then?
I think no, because we are in the stage in the cap and we wait for feedback, and beta. If nothing happens, we move to GA with 0 changes are the process requires.
That sounds good. I'll take it out of the release then. All right. A DRA prioritize alternatives. I admit I caught some of the device management meeting today, but I did not take all that feedback into account. So this is probably slightly out of date. Are we planning on pushing forward prior? I know that the device management team put together has that slide, so I could potentially just interpret that. But if anyone off the top of their heads knows, if
This will stay beta.
Cool, perfect, thank you. And how do we feel in terms of priority?
Medium at the most.
Yeah, that sounds good. Cool. Partitionable devices, which is
alpha.
not, yeah, alpha. I don't know why.
It's going to stay alpha.
Yep. And I would actually, like, from Red Hat's perspective, I would like to treat this as high. Like, I would love to make some progress on this and get the API all put together so we can go to beta next release. I don't know if how people agree with that.
I agree with that.
Great. Let's do that. Okay. Condition for sandbox creation.
There's an author bringing that to GA. I think it's low priority.
Great. Thank you. Drop in Cuba directory. I think that this is low, but we can try to push it. We will soon have a use. We're going to be using it in OpenShift, so we will have a production use case based on 134. So that could be justification, but I don't think it needs to go necessarily. Supplemental groups. It seems we were asked to put it in, so I'm fine leaving it in. I'm kind of leaning towards low on this one.
Yeah, it looks low.
All right, great. Let's clean up these a little bit and then move on to the betas. Making good time. Ensure secret images. Oh, this would be oh no, we would want to finish up the beta here. I think we like half did the beta last release. But it shouldn't be too much. I like this at medium just to finish up the work there. Okay. Container restart rules. This I think from Google side is high.
Plan for beta, we see it as like reasonably high. Yes.
I'm fine with putting it as high. Rootless kubelet. So this has languished for a little while. It seems Akihiro is interested in pushing this forward in the 135 timeframe. So we could potentially do this, but I don't personally feel like it's terribly high. Yeah. Okay. So evented plug, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but and I'm fine to leave it as a low, but I do think Bing has done a lot of work to verify that it is something that's worth moving forward on. And so I do want to try to make some progress here. But I'll talk about that in a bit. Resource device health for beta. And I think this is either medium or high from my perspective. Cool. We'll go medium. Node topology labels via downward API. So go to beta, but I don't see this as terribly high either. I think this is maybe a low.
I prefer this one medium.
Great. Medium it is. Taints and tolerations for DRA.
It will stay in alpha for another version.
Yes, thank you. And how do you feel priority-wise?
Medium.
Cool. Sounds good. Extended resource via DRA driver. I know we at Red Hat want this. This could be high from our perspective, though I could be talked down to medium.
It's high for us too. So I think
Right.
this should be high. This is the top priority for DRA.
I agree. Yeah, and I think well, I'm not sure if Sohan is actually going to be around, but I was hoping Sohan would be able to help out with this from the Red Hat side, but we can talk about that offline. Okay, prioritize alternatives. I put this at medium, and I don't remember why. But
We already covered
is
it.
this going to stable?
It
Sorry,
stays in beta.
Oh, it stays in beta. Okay, cool. Is there any work to be done here for the beta? An additional.
We're hoping to make a change, yeah.
Okay, cool. Great. And it's at medium, and I think that seems okay from my perspective. Okay. Oh, just did that. File end source. This one low or medium, but definitely good to make progress. So that works for me. My white whale, C advisor, let's CRI full pod stats, container de-implementation is apparently slated for merging, which would make sense to move forward for beta. So we may push forward for this, but I've said that maybe a million times, so we'll see. But I don't think that it's terribly high. User namespaces, there's a couple of small pieces. This is another beta, but it's going to be a pretty small update, which I have to do just to make sure that the moving to GA is going to be clean. But yeah. All right, that's the betas. And now alpha.
Yeah, Brian and Matthias will be talking about it later today.
Great.
But yeah,
Okay.
I think it's I would say low. There is no, unless we have this request for a while, so maybe low.
I would say it's medium or high. I mean, internally we're making a big push for getting this in, and I think Matthias. I'm not sure about Matthias, but yeah, I'd say medium at least.
Medium works for me. Node declared features. I think that this seems to be at least a medium to me.
Medium.
Cool. Restart pod on container exits.
It's similar priority as restart pod before, but it's alpha, so I think it's high to medium.
Okay, we can put it high.
Just put a medium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pod level resource managers. That one medium to low from my perspective, but I don't know how other people feel.
Yeah, medium.
It's good.
Yeah.
Good to move forward. Handle core resource requests through DRA. This is actually in draft. I actually don't know if we have a cap up for it yet, so I'm not sure. Yeah, but it was asked to be put into the milestone.
Yeah, this I think this can be a low. We are still drafting the cap and still have some questions unanswered.
Okay, so it might slip out, but we'll try to pull it in. Writable secrets for unprivileged containers. We talked about this a little bit. I think this is also actually potentially still in draft. I think we still have to have some conversation about what it will look like, but I'm happy to sort of have it be moved forward with maybe
This one is, I think this is a high.
Oh, it's high. Okay, well, let's do that then.
We may not guarantee we can go to the next stage, but the priority wise, this is high.
Yeah, and let's try to at least work it through. So yeah, okay, sounds good. Pod level with in place pod resize. We just slipped alpha in 134, but Still planning on making progress here.
Yes.
Yeah, this is high in my opinion.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Let's do that. Image pull progress. I'm actually not the author here did offer to work on it. And I think it does with the image volumes work. It does sort of increase in priority, but I don't think it is anything more than a medium at least. But it could be good to have. Permanent driver allocation failures. This one's a medium from device management. I know we talked about it a little bit today, right? Well, I got a thumb, so I'm going for it. Device attributes and downward API. This did not make it in 134. And actually, there has not really been much progress here, so it's actually not totally clear if this is going to happen. Does anyone know if we're planning on this in 135?
I don't, but let's discuss offline.
Yeah. For now. Okay. Node readiness gates. Yep, I think that this is at least a medium.
I think we will have a presentation on that later, right?
Yeah, I have a presentation on that today. I'll continue the effort on my side, treating it as medium. But we'll discuss this at the post the planning.
Node resource discovery, which has sort of languished for a little while. And actually, we haven't had much activity here. It was the bot that pulled it in, and maybe is more going to be. So I'm actually not sure that this is going to be worked on in this release. I might actually put this in triage, and we'll talk about this next week to see.
Marcus and Katrik were supposed to work on that.
Cool. Maybe I'll poke Marcus, and we can talk about it offline.
Yeah,
maybe.
let's talk about that. Yeah, I'm here. We can talk about that and how to prioritize these. The other one is the node resource hot plug. At least that is one that we'd like to.
Yeah. So you prefer that one over this one?
Oh well, yeah. If we did choose, yeah, I guess
okay.
So. Yeah.
That's good to know. I think. I mean, yeah, I do see this one here. Yeah, let's we can chat maybe offline a little bit on whether we can make progress here. Cool. DRA reserve for workloads.
Medium.
Slip 134. Medium. Great. Thank you. Consumable capacity. This one is a little bit high. Like, I don't know if it's a high for Red Hat, but it's definitely at least medium. Like, we would like to make some progress here.
As far as I know, it's going to stay in alpha for another 135 and some bug fixes and stuff, but I don't think there's any major changes planned.
Cool. Yeah, that's my understanding as well. And I think there needs to be new EDE tests, and also the example driver needs it. So there's a couple, miscellanea. Okay. Eviction request API. I know folks from the Node Lifecycle Working Group are working hard at this one.
At least medium.
I agree.
This is important for the AI machine learning workload.
Yeah, and the Node Graceful Search on work has been so long languishing. I'm almost tempted to make it high, especially because of all the energy going in from the working group.
They make the high. Yeah, for me it's high. Yeah. So
great. Let's do that. Node resource hot plug. I know that this is this. I know Karthik has really wanted this, and I think we're getting closer on the cap. I also know that there's potentially gonna be a hot unplug kept open just to describe what the path forward is, which I think was a blocker for the hot plug piece. I would be okay setting this as medium. I don't know what other people think. Cool. Um,
I think there's also some work we've been looking at around node resizing that would be separate from hot plug, which probably doesn't necessarily impact hot plug, but might, impact the need for hot unplug.
Yeah.
I personally feel resizing maybe is a higher priority than the
Okay. Well, maybe we can, I don't know if we have node resizing on this list.
We can add it.
Yeah, that's on me. Let me put in the cap this week.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll maybe talk about that at the next round of cap review then. And then one more, the resource slice for device health tracking. Which actually seems to maybe even be in draft. I think we're going back and forth a little bit about it. Oh, it is in draft. I put that there. So I'm going to leave this as low for now, unless we come up with a implementation that we want to work forward on. Great. So that was really productive. I'd love to call out the approvers, and you have a little bit of homework to maybe pick up a couple of KEPs on this list, especially the high ones, because KEP freeze is coming up, as a note to all the authors. In 1 week from Thursday, I believe, is the PRR freeze, which means you have to have your KEP update open by then. Oh no, 1 week from Tuesday. So 1 week from today. And then the week after that is KEP freeze. So we are barreling towards the freeze. And so let's get the KEPs done. We have lots of good stuff to work on. So, and next week we can talk through the triaged ones and potentially pull in any that are going to be worked on. So if there's anything that I missed, please reach out. Yeah, Kevin?
Yeah, I had so I'm jumping the line a little bit, but I had an issue around at the end around deprecating C groups V1. I was wondering if we should bring that one into the KEPs.
Yeah, let's talk through those when we go through the ones that are in triage. I think it's still sort of in draft, but I do agree that it could be something to work on. But let's maybe work on that offline and then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm wondering maybe as a priority, because we were talking about the priorities. Like if we don't do that now, we are okay. I mean, we'll
I'm
see
not
if
of the opinion personally that it's like the highest part. I think it's good to. I have changed my opinion. I think it could be a good thing to do, but I don't think that we like absolutely need to this release. But like I do think let's try to make progress on it.
Yeah, but I guess right now we are removing testing of C groups V1 because we can't.
From the cryo test, but there's still containerd tests that have it. So there is testing that's being done for Kubernetes. So
okay.
Cool. All right. And all right. So that was KEP planning. Thank you, everyone. The next one is me, which is Invented Plague. So yeah, Bing has put together a pretty comprehensive amount of research on like the performance of Invented Plague, and has come up with some pretty good numbers. But the TLDR is like Invented Plague does perform better and does not currently have like it has an incredibly low error rate. A lot of numbers just running through real quick, like to create 100 pods, like, so the way that one would read this graph is basically like for each bucket, this is like how the amount of like pods that were created in less than or equal to that amount of time. So like Invented Plague created 33 pods in less than 10 seconds versus a generic plague doing 18. And this sort of like dichotomy is like the case for all the way across the board. So like 20 seconds, in this 200 pod case, practically double the number of pods got created in 20 seconds rather than the generic plague. For 400 pods, it didn't perform as better, but it did better in the 30 seconds. So like basically like pods are being created faster, which was the original, part of the original object was just to have the life cycle events be, pods moving between phases in life cycle events faster. like this recreation. This is way better. You know, pods, many more pods were created within 1 minute when there are 400 pods that existed. So in high churn scenarios, it performs better. And then the other thing to call out is this error rate. So there's a metric that's tracking the amount of errors, the failure count. And in this like high churn scenario with a lot of crashing pods, Evented Plague did like record one single failure out of 280,000 restarts, which is great, and does, you know, open the question, what was that one failure? But also, like, you know, that's a really, really low error rate, and so it is proving to be fairly stable as well. So Bing wants to move forward on the feature, and I'm inclined to agree about it. I don't think it needs to have terribly high priority, but I think like there's a couple of loose ends that can be picked up here and there, but there have been a lot of bug fixes in this area over the last couple of years, and it's performing much better. Sergey?
Yeah, I think overall everybody agrees that this is a good future for Kubernetes, and the feedback last time was that we don't really know, like, given this like one failure, and like what we don't really know the behavior of it over time on higher stress environments, and maybe some other runtimes behaviors, like whatever happens on the runtimes. We want to understand that design that we started with is actually will actually allow us to move forward and be sure that it's reliable long term. So one thing we discussed is like maybe a higher reconciliation rate, or maybe some other ways to understand that we are not falling behind on updates on containers.
Yeah, I'm curious what other data, like what other testing could be done. Like this set here, which I definitely fully glossed over, was like, you know, these this was a really high churn crashing scenario where pods like had a really low crash through back off, and then we're just like crashing. And in that case, the pods were restarting they were restarting very consistently, and, you know, had this really high number of restarts, and there was only one, you know, instance where it failed, which I do agree needs to be investigated, and like probably that'd be really hard to do. But like generally, like what data would you like to see to feel confident that high churn scenarios are being covered? Because from my perspective, like this test shows that.
I'm not talking about tests. Like tests for sure will need to happen. I'm talking about like, let's say we want to roll it out in 140, like I don't know, like whatever number, like 145, 35. What, like, how do we ensure that we can monitor that and have a proper fallback, and understand that pods will not just get stuck on this new Evented Plague? How will detect this? How will how customers, if something goes wrong? That is my main concern here.
So my understanding is like this failure count is caught by us falling back to generic plague, but on like a lower frequency. And so I believe that that's happening today. And I think the eventual goal would be to further reduce the frequency of generic plague happening, so that like eventually we do move fully towards evented plague. But I think like my understanding is that we are correcting any really intermittent failures on behalf of evented plague by having the generic plague fall back, and that's happening today, is my understanding.
Yeah, if we, yeah.
So Peter, first thing, can you link the doc?
Yes,
in the
it is linked. I believe it's linked in that. Yes, it's. Oh no, it's not.
So we can take a look and review the testing. Yeah, I'm okay with the move forward, but I totally understand the Sergey's concerns. So what it is needed for us to move forward, like the code change, all those kind of things, always everything's ready, so we can during the development cycle, we can enable this as early as possible. Then we can identify some problem. I also want to know, is this one did some stress test, like especially for the resource starvation for Kubernetes and Containerd, and in those kind of the resource content and the resource contention, did we do the good test? And it's increase of those failure and have to fail over. And once fail over, and because we need rewind, right? So the whole thing. So is there any problem for this? Yeah. So I don't want to see those stress tests.
Yeah, take a look at this document. I think it's pretty comprehensive, and we have been working together on like trying to figure out the right set. I feel good about the test that Bing has done, but I also know that they're really like open to taking more feedback and more tests. So if you have any new ideas for things to check or like other scenarios, like I'm sure that would also be, could be covered. But yeah, that sounds good. I think we can discuss in the KEP and like, propose moving forward, and we can, try to find, and Sergey, if you could possibly like summarize your point. I just want to make sure that I get the language right. If you can summarize your point in notes, because Bing can't make this, and I'll try to post the meeting notes early so that Bing can see it. But okay, great. Thank you for that feedback.
Okay, I go next. So we had many conversations about like what does it mean to release a feature, and one of the questions was always whether Windows is supported. Over time, we had good promise of Windows user visible like pod lifecycle and resource management feature being almost identical to Linux. Now we're moving away from that, like with pod level resources, with in-place resize. We are not supporting Windows, and I want to make it explicit that if we want Windows support for these features, we will need SIG Windows to step up and help us with that. So I drafted this document, and Mark here on this call as well, he reviewed, and I think they reviewed with SIG Windows today. I think one unexpected consequence of this document is SIG Windows want to promote some CRI-based metrics ahead of Linux, but yeah, Mark, do you have something to say?
Yeah, so I reviewed the document, and we also discussed it at SIG Windows, and I think that in general, I'm in agreement with this. I think especially any of the changes that require like container runtime changes, there's just a long tail to get those merged, and then all of the graduation requirements and stuff make it so that it makes sense to not tie the promotion of Linux, like of some features that Linux really wants to push forward on Windows. And I think like as mentioned, like the graceful node shutdown was a good example where we were involved in the KEP review process and made sure that the plug points that were needed to implement that, and then eventually did implement that as another enhancement and run that through. I think my biggest concern, and this was kind of echoed in the SIG Windows community meeting that just happened prior to this, is like there are a lot of enhancements like ensure secret pull, like ensure pulled secrets and like evented plague and stuff where there really isn't any additional work needed on Windows. So how do we want to handle those? Does it like there's E2E validation that I'm sure needs to happen. Does it really make sense to author a new KEP just to and go through a 3 release cycle to author those? Or like so I think maybe we'll need to continue to work to get a little bit of more guidance around that. Like a lot of E2E tests that are authored do run on Windows, and we do run most of the E2E tests that aren't Windows specific. So if there really is no extra like burden for SIG Node, I think it would be nice to try and move forward and keep feature parity together. So I think that's the biggest kind of lingering questions that I have about that is, does it make sense to do this for every single KEP? And also, the one thing I said is I think we do have some expectations that existing like functionality wouldn't regress from any of this. So if there is Linux specific work that's going in and it does get caught, existing E2E tests on Windows do fail, I would hope that those would still get like addressed as part of the Linux implementation. And then real quick, I see your hand on raised too, but I do also think that this is an opportunity, like Windows specifically, we've been waiting for the CRI only stats work to go to beta and stable, because we do have some work that are planned around resource management that was kind of pinned to that, specifically reporting different types of memory metrics. That's all plugged through Windows, or that's all plugged. Let's all plumb through from Containerd all the way into the kubelet for that too. So I do maybe think hopefully there's an opportunity to decouple some of that work as well, as Sergey mentioned. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, Mark, thanks to attend today's meeting. So there's a couple of things actually you just mentioned. One is like when we keep changing of the SIG node components, right? So node component, I believe even also network component. We shouldn't introduce of the regression to the existing of the Windows features, right? That's the way, unless steering committee make more, and right, so that's decision. And unless I think that SIG node should make that commitment. So, but how we are going to make that commitment is it is the commitment. Then we also need the SIG Windows participants, right? So that Windows E2E test. So I think the SIG Windows need to help us to figure out what it is the must run at which stage, right? So some tests, so we need to figure out and how to make those tests relatively stable, because often I heard people complain like the Windows SIG Windows E2E test and the node test also, all those kind of things keep flaky. But then nobody really look into those kind of things. And if there's always flaky and always fail, then SIG node, not just SIG node, any participant like the node and the network cannot ensure those no regression, right? So because we always feel, okay, it's just testing always. So we could figure out, like we need a partner. And then if SIG Windows can commit to ensure some level of the flakiness, and we can also commit to not to introduce of the regression. I think that's we should as the community together. Then now for the new features, right? So new features, like what you say, some features actually don't have, it is compatible. Naturally is compatible. So we don't need just artificially force ourselves not compatible on the Windows and then has to go. But what's the good way for us to test also, right? So, and also what's the process, how we tracking those kind of things? So here's the one thing, what I proposed I think more than a year ago for the Containerd, because we also have like the signal that make a lot of progress on the container runtime. And related, we have the expectation, but there's the missing communication or whatever things. So we could maybe in the PRR, in the CAP PRR, can see that, okay, here it is the feature. This feature, it is relevant. What's the relevant with Windows? So the feature owner could say, okay, I need this feature is parable by nature. We shouldn't, we believe it's not introduce of the regression, or maybe it is naturally supported on Windows. So the feature owner can document something, but that one, it is the hypothesis from the Linux developer. I hope if the SIG Windows can quickly scan through of the data, right? So all the CAP and say, oh, what's the new feature? And from the CAP author perspective, it is enabled on the Windows or not on the Windows. So maybe some way we could automate it to run those tests on the Windows. I don't know. Windows is more complicated on the Containerd.
Yeah, explicitly in the document I shared, we asked to mechanism of discovering Windows problems being pushed from SIG Windows rather than pulled from us. It's really hard to get this as a requirement, and like the developer needs to do a lot of responsibilities to fill the gap. And from just clarification, release blocking and end-to-end tests, we also hope that release team and SIG Windows will also notify us if something was broken, and then it will be easier for us. It's just CI group doesn't track it, and we have very little visibility into what Windows runs as a release blocking and end-to-end. So yeah, whatever can be.
At least the Mac, we can give you not just signal. I'm thinking about the overall, all the other six. Any caps, we give you some easy way. You can aggregate all those new features, get in, to plan to get into the next release. So the SIG windows can review them and say, oh, what kind of features we want to invest to make that feature priority on the windows. I think that maybe is the best way. So you might be delayed for one release because until cap froze, then you won't have the full picture, right? But I think it's better than today. Today is like every feature at least the SIG Node, and people will ask, and especially for those important feature for enable AI machine learning workload. This is why I'm feel eager to make the decision. We are not supported. Like people keep asking. So then I always say, okay, let's just move forward. Let's forget about the Windows. Forget about Windows. The reason is just because velocity is important at this moment.
Yep. Yeah, I understand the velocity is very important, and I don't want to slow that down. I think a couple of thoughts here too. I have been thinking of how we can review the KEPs for applicability for Windows. I think we'll probably just need to discuss offline to figure out the best way to do that. Potentially with a column in the in either some GitHub project boards or the KEP planning, like the KEP tracking work too. That might be a good way to first start. I will say we do have pretty extensive E2E testing and now unit testing in Windows. And as far as I know, it's pretty stable. Occasionally, I think there
we
were
just
some
don't track this failures, and we don't know whether we broke anything or not. So it doesn't concentrate on that.
Yeah, I think maybe we can work together as leads to do this. Like we have the ability to run test passes where we can enable like alpha features on any of the Kubernetes components that we need, specify which targets we want to run with selectors. We can run with containerd, like nightly builds, like built off master and things like that. So I think we have a lot of the capabilities there. It's probably just visibility and communication that we can improve with that too.
Thank you. Sotiris, you want to comment that, or we want to move?
Yeah, I just want to comment because it is mentioned a lot about the AI this and AI that. Just to mention that Kubernetes is being used also by other markets, and we should not only prioritize the AI hype.
Yes. Sorry, we do. We are not just prioritize the AI. I oversimplify this one. We basically prioritize to evolve Kubernetes to support more workload, right? So, and even like the traditional HPC workloads, right? So you can see that we want to do that for years, but the community, at least the Kubernetes community, at least I want to do for years, and the community don't have interest until recently. You can see that, right? So like the support the HPC workloads and all other workloads, and also even like the some framework, right? So it is become to get the community interest to evolve Kubernetes, become to more generic orchestration for those workloads. So we have to move forward, because otherwise, if we don't move forward and people don't have infrastructure management and like Kubernetes is not ready, and then people will evolve another one. That's basically literally like that cases, right? So that's why we have to keep Kubernetes relevant for the new workload, even like existing workload, but they have like the new requirement. So that's why we have to put a higher priority and move faster right now. At least I feel this sense of the urgency. Yeah, you're so right. I just oversimplify. I basically want to support more workload, and yeah.
I think it's good clarification. So I think we're probably good on this one. Maybe a little bit of clarification between the leads, between the two SIGs on how to do the test conformance, and then some follow-up pieces on PR. But I think we can discuss that in the doc.
Yeah, I think we can just iterate on
to the next.
The doc that Sergey started.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Matthias and Brian?
Yeah, I just realized my screen sharing permissions on this laptop haven't been set up yet. So I think I have to restart unless somebody else wants to share the doc.
I can. Are you just this KEP?
Yeah, so there's the I think he linked the changes, or oh no, this is the actual one. Okay, so I don't know how much context everyone has, but this KEP was approved. It was driven by Katarzyna, I think, over a year ago at this point. And then priorities shifted and we didn't have the resources to see it through. But yeah, it's getting brought back up for upcoming projects internally at Google. And then coincidentally, Mattias has a use case that is similar, but isn't for pod status. This one is basically a kubelet API for getting the pod readiness information. So just the pod status. But Mattias's use case, I think, involves metadata. So instead of trying to split that into another API or anything like that, I think the idea was we were going to make it one API that serves the full pod. So that's the gist of it. There was some considerations for like whether that's okay from a security perspective, because a lot of so there was some hedging here saying like, oh, is the Unix socket permissions enough to grant full pod spec information or not? So they were saying we'll just only serve the pod status for readiness. But now we're basically saying, okay, let's just do the full pod. Whether that's okay is sort of up in the air. I think it should be fine, but if not, one thing we were thinking for optimization and possibly security is we can filter return fields on the server side with protobuf field masks. So maybe we can have like a deny list or allow list for any fields that we feel are should not be exposed with just these permissions, the admin permissions. Yeah, so this is the existing KEP that's already been approved. I think Mattias also has a GitHub PR out for the actual changes, including the spec and stuff. So I don't know if you can pull that up. Let me see if I can link it. Chat, I guess. This is the PR. But yeah, that is the gist of it. It's really just changing it from pod readiness only to full pod spec, and then using field masks in the gRPC metadata to scope the data so that it's not because full pod spec can be pretty heavy. So yeah, using protobuf field masks it'll make it a lot more optimized, and we can maybe block any fields that we don't want to expose without full like API server authentication. I'm trying to keep it quick here. Is that clear?
Yeah, Brian, very clear. But we because there's the concern in the past as a security. So last time, Sergey and I approved this one, and based on the limited information.
Mm-hmm.
So now add more information we need to review. Yeah, but I clearly see what you want, and we need to review. And
so
to
okay, go ahead.
And then talk to the security folks. That's all. Yeah.
Sure. There was one question. I mean, given we were trying to get this into 135, the idea of using the field masks to only expose a certain subset, we could do it in a phased a way where since pod status was already approved, we could expose pod status with field masks, and then in the future we can add on any fields that we feel are qualified from a security perspective.
That's basically originally what I suggested. I think let's just have the pod status. Then we take time to figure out what spec you want, and then talk to the security. That's kind of what I suggested last time. If we want to take that approach, that's totally okay. But if we want like the one release in the 1.30 file, have spec, both spec and the full of the pod, right? So then we need to talk, right? Engage with the security and go over the one by one. That's kind of that's more beyond not just SIG Node. That's also have other SIG have to engage now.
Yeah,
sure.
But if you only
one important change we want to make is we wanted to do gRPC call like API that will have its own schema, and it will convert pod API into some other schema that we'll need to maintain. I think one of the idea here is to try to keep it as close to pod API as possible. Maybe like even like make it precisely pod API, so we don't need to have this piecemeal of updating gRPC and product files every release. It will be disaster.
Yeah, I actually left a comment there saying I don't know why we have to redefine it, and we can't just use the pod that exists. Yeah.
I think mostly because we wanted to say like this is a sidecar, this is like a init container, this is not a init container too, and this data is not in pod status, so we need to invent something else. And like maybe we shouldn't invent it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, we're still scoping that out, but it should be fine. Yeah, auto generate the profile from the API spec. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, so yeah, I guess in turn we could update the PR maybe to include this phased approach in the short term to get just the pod status in. Matthias isn't here to talk about his use case. I'm not sure what fields I think it was metadata, but yeah.
Yeah, but if security team will be fine with that, we can just force all of it.
Yeah,
that's good.
Exactly. And also, Circuit just give a good reason why we want. Yeah. Okay. Let's just update this one and then carry on from the cap review.
Sure. Yeah. Francesco, you have a hand?
Yeah. Very quickly, I will also comment on the cap, but I agree this seems to be a separate use case from the pod resources API, which I was mostly kind of maintaining in the last few months. So I'm just curious, it would be helpful if there could be a way to reconcile the two API results, meaning, okay, I'm querying the pod at this point in time. Now, as soon as I can, I'm querying the pod resources API. I would like to make sure that the two set of data refer to the same point in time, or I will be useful to say, okay, now something changed in between. I need to, retry in the client. So that is something that I think it could be useful from the client side, because we had this problem basically in the past. So yeah, I think is this something that could be in scope in general?
Okay, so just to be clear, you're talking about if you're watching a pod on the pod resources API and on this pod status API.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not asking for, okay, I want to make sure this is atomic, because it's not, but making sure, okay, maybe just observer generation or something like that. I could help from the pod resources API, but I think from client perspective, because I can't see clients consuming them both, that could be useful. So if it's not in scope, I think we should think about as a future extension of that. But we can discuss offline in the cap.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, we can add that as at least a future consideration.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We are at time, which is tough because we have a lot more to talk about. But yeah, so thank you, everyone, for joining, and hopefully we can get through more of our items next week or offline. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks.